Item 12B, informational presentation regarding Pier 80 Shed A, temporary emergency winter shelter for homeless adults during El Nino 2015-16, and a proposed navigation center on port property on 24th Street between Michigan Street and Warm Water Cove Park.
Good afternoon, President Adams, Commissioners, Director of Special Projects, Brad Benson, here with Deputy Director of Planning and Development, Byron Rett, and David Beaupre. We're here to talk about the Pier 80 El Nino Winter Shelter. And also, we're here with the Mayor's Office of HOPE Director Sam Dodge and Emily Cohen, who are going to talk about the Navigation Center model and a proposal for a Navigation Center on 24th Street. We're also joined by staff of the San Francisco Public Works Department, who are working with HOPE SF to design proposed navigation centers, not only at this proposed location, but at other locations around the city. Given the hour, I just want to keep my remarks very, very brief and turn over the microphone to Sam. So President Adams, I think, mentioned at the beginning of the year the homeless populations that we see along the waterfront. Port staff has experienced homeless populations in a number of locations. We see them in the Embarcadero area, behind the ferry building, at Warm Water Cove Park, along Islas Creek, and in the backlands. The port has a broad variety of professionals working at the port, but we don't have a background in social services and public health. And so we really appreciate the opportunity to work with the folks in the city who do have this experience to actually bring forward some solutions. In December, the Commission authorized a temporary shelter at two locations, Pier 80, Shed A, and Pier 29. It was really designed for the anticipated storm events during the El Nino period. As Sam will describe in a little bit more detail, the finding was that the idea of opening up shelters just during rain events, storm events, didn't attract the population that needed to be sheltered. And so the Pier 80 shelter transitioned to a 24-hour a day reservation-based system with up to 180 beds. Sam will talk about that transition a little bit more. Tom Carter from the Deputy Director of Maintenance worked with HSA staff to set up the shelter at Pier 80. It opened in early February. It's got an average census of about 165 people per night. We also worked to try and set up something in Pier 29. There were a number of permitting problems in Pier 29. We couldn't overcome some of the building permit requirements in that shed, so that facility did not open as a shelter. We have been participating with HOPE staff and Public Works staff in some preliminary public outreach about the proposed navigation center that Tom will talk about a little bit more. There was a meeting in Dogpatch this last week that Port staff attended, and we're definitely in a listening mode with the community. And I would like to say that in working with Sam and his staff and Public Works staff, it's impressive to see people who, A, really take the outreach process seriously and want to design facilities that meet the needs of their target population. So with that, Sam, I'd like to invite you. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioners, and it's wonderful to be back here. Sam Dodge from the Mayor's Office of HOPE. You know, when I was here last fall, we were talking about the El Nino storm events, and it looked really dire at the time. I think we got lucky, or the drought concerns maybe not so lucky. But, you know, subsequent to that, I think HSA presented to the board and came to terms about these two locations, Pier 80 and Pier 29. Pier 29 was not used. but Pier 80 proved to be really instrumental. What we had been doing was planning to really open up a series of different shelters, small shelters, as storm events came in, and to be able to respond to extreme weather events. A lot of these spaces were in park and rec facilities or YMCA facilities, things that had other uses as well. And what we saw is that we had expanded winter capacity in various sites, like some of our homeless service center sites and some nonprofit like St. Anthony's Kitchen and Glide. The places we were able to stay open continuously were very well utilized. When we popped open places in rec centers and others, it was very hard to use. It didn't get used at the rate that we wanted. So mid-season, we realized that the most important thing would be to find a location that we could open up continuously, and we'd set up the sprung structure in Pier 80, and it really fit the needs very well. It's an extremely basic emergency response. This is a picture of it, and you'll see mats on the floor, sprung structure. We did something to take a little bit of the hurt out of it and to make a living room area, set up a place where folks can watch movies. There was hot meals brought in from Glide. We were able to open various areas, one for couples, one for women only, one for men. We were able to loosen some of the restrictions on personal belongings and allow people to store stuff there so that they would feel welcome to come in, and they could come in with their partners or their pets. And that proved to be really instrumental to help people come in from the poor winter storms conditions and then also other life safety hazards that they face on the street. So I just want to really get to the point that it was turned out to be a very big success. I was worried about what it looked like to the clients because this is an industrial port facility that's really made for your main businesses. It really, we were just the idea of temporarily being there, not trying to make permanent changes, but just trying to accommodate the people that we were working with. We were able to bring in case management. We were able to work with the Department of Public Health and set up health clinics 3 nights a week. And the people really needed that. They were most of our guests are facing multiple life challenges, including medical challenges, and this was a great way to be able to work with them while they were guests. Right now we're working on taking it down. We want to be responsible and good partners, and we want to be out of there. I know that the port is working to bring in, an auto importer and to bring that back to its full use, and we're in full support of that. Right now, it's a giant area, and we're using maybe 10% of the area, and it really is best to be used in its industrial capacity. It's just so wonderful when the city was facing this crisis to be able to team with the port to really provide meaningful alternatives where we were able to really meet people where they are, bring them in, and help them get back into the rest of our system of care or back on with their lives directly. And it's just, I can't say enough, just thank you, and how much it's been really well utilized and timely. I want to shift in my presentation now, if I can, or if you want to break and have any questions about Pier 80, but I know their time is tight.
We have all night.
Okay, cool. I wanted to talk about the Navigation Center, and I can go kind of quickly on some of this, the concepts. This is really an important innovation that we see.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think I would rather break
Okay,
and
great.
talk because they're two separate
Sure,
things.
yes.
And so I think I'd rather address the Pier 80 temporary structure before we get into the Navigation Center.
Okay. All right, go. That's fine. So she wants to talk.
I just want, yeah. And so I'm extremely happy that Pier 80 has been a success and has worked out despite the way it started. But I think my concern is that when you came to us in December, you gave a presentation and you said that there would be 15 sites around the city, and Pier 80 and Pier 29 would only be used in emergency services when all other sites were full. That was a presentation you gave to us. That's a presentation that our Southern Waterfront Advisory Committee got, the neighborhood. And so I think, as you saw from the last item, we take our community advisory groups and our neighbors very seriously and try to do as much outreach as possible for whatever items may be affecting that particular area. And so for us to read in the paper that all of a sudden Pier 80 has become a permanent site, and everybody in the city, regardless of where the problem is going to that permanent site. And then we're trying to deal with maritime tenants, get shipping in here, and we're being told that this is being used for the homeless. Somehow now the port has become responsible for all the homeless, and it's all of our issue. Mm-hmm. We all have to do something to take care of this. We have homeless people all along the 7.5 acres of the waterfront. It's not just in one area. And so to me, it was like a bait and switch. And there was no conversation with this commission about furthering this concept, which is much needed throughout the city. So now we have community members and organizations who don't believe us, who don't trust us. So it's kind of putting us in a hard situation if we're saying one thing but doing another. And so I think I just want to be able to say that I think that we should really, really do our outreach and listen, because people are being affected by these issues and what we're doing without letting them know.
Right. Commissioner, mind
Please,
if I respond?
Please.
I don't know, you might remember that I was here in, I think it was September. Wasn't party to the presentation in December.
I think it was Bevan.
I think it was maybe someone from HSA, maybe Dave Curto.
Who came to talk about the temporary shelter?
Yeah. And so I did not know that discussion, and I'm sorry for that, and I just apologize for that.
But our staff knew it. Our staff knew it.
Yeah.
And our staff has been in communication with all city departments.
Okay.
And I think the real concern is that there are so many city departments involved with this issue, and there's no one actually responsible or accountable. Well, now it stops with you. Huh?
Yeah, let me be responsible, please. Yes. And I did meet with the SWAC, Southwest... Southeast. Sorry.
Southern Waterfront Advisory Committee.
Okay. Thank you very much. And as soon as I could, after it converted to being what we call a winter shelter, from being an El Nino storm response shelter, and I really did appreciate what the members there said, and I promised to return. I don't know the schedule of their meetings, but I think there was a meeting in April, and so that we can have further discussions about that. But yeah,
well, at this point, it's moot because you guys are moving out of Pier 80.
Right.
But I think my major concern is that it was a temporary shelter.
Right.
Temporary only when every other shelter was filled.
Right.
And then it became permanent. And then it tried to become extremely permanent.
No. It really was never planned to be permanent. I know that there's some confusion in the media, and so I have to take responsibility.
Well, that's where I read about it,
Yeah.
I've got to say something on this. And I kind of disagree with you, Commissioner Brandon. And I actually went down there several weeks ago. Myself and Jim Maloney, who used to be the Maritime Marketing Director, we did a tour of Pier 80. And I actually went down there. A lot of people drive by, lock their doors. I actually went down there for 2 hours. Sam, they gave us a tour. And this whole time on this other deal that we were working on, I always knew and was told that it was temporary. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe they didn't come back to us, but I think the mayor was under a lot of pressure, and I just think sometimes you got to have some kind of flexibility. You can't always be locked into something, and I think the thing worked out. And I'm not going to be like micromanaging and picking everything apart. Maybe we should have had another meeting, but I think they did what they had to do. That's my opinion, and I support that. I went down there. I saw what was happening. It was a good work. What they were trying to do, Sam and I had a conversation. Sam said, Willie, I understand the new customers coming in here. He said, I am so supportive of that. He goes, thank you for allowing us just to be here, but they needed to go somewhere. And we were able to do our part, and so I'm fine with it.
That's fine. I'm happy that you're fine.
I know, but I just have to tell you that we can pick everything apart, but as I'm saying, sometimes you got to have leeway, and I think they needed some leeway in this situation, and I think they did what they had to do, and it was a good deal. And like I said, I actually got off my butt and went down there, and I saw what was going on down there, and there's no children at that facility, and it was men and women, and they had their pets down there, and it was a safe and harmonious place down there, and I thought it was a good thing that was going on there. And so, anyway,
and I hope that we can, and I hope we can have those throughout the city.
You're
I'm
right.
I'm happy with the success of the project, and I hope that we can have them throughout the city.
Thank you. I appreciate that, the support. Should I continue? Is that all right?
Please.
Please.
So, what is a more, viable solution to when we're facing street homelessness in our city? And it is a crisis on our streets. And, the Board of Supervisors did declare it a state of emergency for the city and county of San Francisco. And, what we've learned is that we piloted a project in this last year, taking our best learning and taking the best ideas from around the country about really how to approach long-term street homeless people. And we came up with the Navigation Center. Like I said, for about a decade, we've had similar point-in-time count number, which is a federally mandated census of our homeless population that takes a snapshot, a one-night picture of where people are that are homeless in our system. And it's about half on the streets and half in shelters, transitional housing, treatment programs, and other institutions. And that we've relatively stayed the same over 10 years is a pretty unique situation over the West Coast, where we've seen large increases in all the major cities, including Honolulu and San Diego and LA and Seattle and others. But it's also depressing and hard to live with, and I hear day and day from the people living in the streets and the community members, this is unacceptable, and I believe that. This sort of response allows us to invite people in and transition them towards permanent housing. Over this past year, we were able to work with 430 people to bring them in off the street, and 81% exited to housing in an average of 51 days. The target population is people in encampments, people who have traditionally not been able to access services in the city, and long-term homeless people, and it's all three. We've a welcoming environment that's able to accommodate people as they are, because we know once they take a chance with us to come in that it's very compelling. Once you're getting a hot shower, you're getting good food, you're getting a good night's sleep, you're willing to do the kind of work that's necessary to change your life. And that's really what we're asking people to do, is to change their life fundamentally. And we're talking about people that have been homeless sometimes 10, 20. We had a woman, 33 years she's been homeless, and she was able to come in and change her life. And what we're doing is co-locating benefit workers from the County Adult Assistance Program, bringing in the Department of Public Health medical clinic once a week, have high staff ratios so that we can really work with people to run the gauntlet of necessary steps in order to end their homelessness, whether it's be get their IDs, go to appointments, go through the housing process, and finally move in. It's small, relatively. What we're proposing is, a capacity of 80 people with very high staffing ratios that are 24 hours a day. It's not a kind of facility where we kick people out at one part of the day. No, it's a 24-hour facility. It's that we invite people in. No one shows up at the door and comes in. We're working and targeting with people. As we take down encampments, we're finding different solutions for different people. This is really the right answer for people that are facing multiple challenges, and it's not easy to end their homelessness. The idea is that dormitories are sleep spaces 24 hours a day, that there's a cafe area to where they can access food and to watch TV and just read or do whatever they need to do 24 hours a day. And that really we're just working towards getting them housed as rapidly as possible, but keeping a very mellow, relaxed environment and empowering them as much as possible to, steer the process with us. So in the current navigation center, we've seen, different methods to getting people out of homelessness, and some of them take different periods of time. It's about 3 months to get into permanent supportive housing. We use Homeward Bound quite a lot, which we're able to rapidly connect people with their friends and family if they have such. And the overall average is 51 days. Like I said, the outcomes, we say positive and negative exits, but positive exits are all people that are able to, complete the process and to return to stable housing. And negative exits have various ways that we weren't successful. But, the idea is that this is not like a slam dunk. We're not just skimming and finding the easy things to do and do it the easy way. We're really looking at the people that our society and our homeless care system has really failed, and that we know that we have to make extraordinary efforts to be successful with them, and this is a chance to do that. It comes with a lot of partners, and that's how, we've been doing it in San Francisco, from the great work at Episcopal Community Services that has been running the current Navigation Center and the Mission Neighborhood Resource Center, to many departmental partners. And the San Francisco Interfaith Council really helped facilitate a generous donation to make it possible. Let's say about 24th Street, Warm Water Cove. The physical components are a lot mirroring what worked very well at 1950 Mission. The services are also building off what we know was successful at 1950 Mission. And another important element is this is a temporary use, and this is not a permanent facility. And people ask me why, and said, listen, we're trying to build permanent housing and permanent exits. We're not trying to build permanent shelters. The idea is to really scope up the tools that we need to transition certain populations out of homelessness that have persisted for a long time. I mean, once we have housed all the people that have been homeless for more than 10 years, we will not have people homeless 10 years on our street. And it's well-proven fact that people experience homelessness in extremely different ways, where we have a small core of people that have very long periods of homelessness, and the vast majority experience a housing crisis, and we're able to end their homelessness there. And so really these navigation centers temporal, and there's a sense of urgency and kind of campaign around the whole operation. And we also want to be able to shift and work in different parts of the city. And so, what we're proposing is a partnership that's, time limited and also returns the space back to its original use. We feel like that we can be really great neighbors. There's something very nice about a 24-hour facility in a location like Warm Water Cove, which, I lived on 3rd Street, very proximate to Warm Water Cove years ago, and I'm very familiar with its different faces, which sometimes cannot be the most, welcoming or community-oriented faces. It can be a kind of a zone in the city where many things can happen, some of them not safe. I'll just say it like that. We plan to be very good partners. We are looking at ways to really enhance the Warm Water Cove experience and the security and usability of the area. I wanted to turn it over to Department of Public Works and have them present on some of their ideas so far.
Thank you, Commissioners. Paul DeFreitas with San Francisco Public Works. We've been working very closely with Sam and with HOPE in terms of making the program aspects of the Navigation Center have a built component that's real and can be managed. One of the sites that we were looking at is, as Sam mentioned, here at 24th Street at the end.
Ideas so far.
Thank you, Commissioners. Paul DeFreitas with San Francisco Public Works. We've been working very closely with Sam and with HOPE in terms of making the program aspects of the Navigation Center have a built component that's real and can be managed. One of the sites that we were looking at is, as Sam mentioned, here at 24th Street at the end adjacent to Warm Water Cove. You can see the parcel here in purple. The street is a port-owned street, as you know, and it's located adjacent to Sheedy Rigging at the end, at the dead end of the current street. Here you can see a view of the street looking eastwards towards the park. And so the idea is to vacate a portion of the street. We would always leave a section of the street as public access and as emergency access to the park, but to utilize a portion of that street in a temporary basis to create a temporary navigation center that can essentially be demountable. So we would have a very light touch on the land. We would restore that street to its existing condition and to whatever the port would want to return it to. And as such, we would be able to relocate this to a different area of the city or to a different site. One of the things that was very important to us is that we not only create a good space for the inhabitants and the residents of the Navigation Center, but we also enhance the area. We improve the access to the park, and we create something that improves the area and improves the public access. And so that's something that was very important to us in the planning here. You can see here an overall site plan showing the proposed navigation center. And so conceptually, the way we've thought about this is it's a village concept organized around a series of outdoor courtyards. And we plan on doing this via modular construction units so that we can essentially construct it very rapidly in a prefabricated offsite manner, and we can relocate them as we need. We would connect these modular construction units with an elevated wood deck, so that provides level access to all of the units, so we don't have to have ramps and stairs and convoluted ways of getting people in and out of the dormitories and the community spaces. There's a large proportion of the homeless population that has physical disabilities, so it is very important to be able to accommodate that in a site like this. The other thing that that elevated deck allows is for us to run all of the utilities above ground and concealed under that deck. So we don't need to tear up the street. We don't need to excavate large portions of this in order to run utilities. We're able to locate them all above grade underneath that deck with minimal disturbance to what's underneath. You can see that what we've done here is we've organized the site in a linear fashion because it's on a street and we need to maintain, of course, public access to the park. But we were also strategic in terms of what we placed where. So at both ends of the site is where we place the 24/7 community or 24/7 staffed areas of the facility. At the west end is where we have the entrance to the main entrance to the facility with the intake offices for staff, as well as DPH's roving medical teams and meeting areas. On the east end of the site, overlooking Warm Water Cove Park, is where we have the community room. And that community room and kitchenette is staffed 24/7 as well. So on both ends of the site, we have eyes on the street, if you will, and eyes on the park. Hopefully that'll provide an enhancement to the security and safety of the area. The dormitory modules themselves, there's 4 units. Each one of the dormitories has 20 beds. And they're joined together with these community courtyards. The community courtyards also open onto the restroom modules, the shower modules, the laundry areas, all of which are really important aspects of the Navigation Center for the residents. But additionally, those community courtyards also provide an important gathering space for the residents. It's important for us to create this tranquil and restorative environment for the residents. Many of these people have had significant challenge in their life situation, and we want to do what we can in order to help them transition to a more stable housing exit. And part of that is providing the type of spaces that can begin to emulate what they would have with stable housing. It's not mats on a floor in a large warehouse space. It's smaller environments. It's environments that allow them to socialize. It's environments that allow them to have access to the outdoors. And these are all important aspects to the social situation as well as the psychological situation of the residents. And it's very important that we enhance that. You can see the multicolored element at the bottom of the slide. That represents the 20-foot wide street that essentially would always be maintained throughout this that links to Warm Water Cove Park. And some of our thoughts moving forward there are that we would provide enhanced site lighting. We would provide visibility physically into and out of that area to enhance the aspect of the public accessing Warm Water Cove, but we would also continue to provide access for Sheedy and their warehouse doors. This configuration allows them to be able to turn their trucks onto 24th Street, so we wouldn't have any imposition on that access. So in essence, what we're really trying to do is to create a temporary community that allows these people to transition over to a more stable housing exit. And I'd really like to thank Sam as well for the opportunity to be able to innovate and be able to create a solution that we haven't really done before. And it's a chance that we can set an example to other cities. It's a chance that we can set the example in being the leaders on how to deal with the situation. Thank you.
Yeah. Did you want to talk about that? No, that's okay. We talked about this is at the very beginning of the process, right? And, community engagement is very important and needs to be in various modes, both one-on-one and both in written materials and meetings and, with both, electeds, decision makers, entitlement entities, neighborhood businesses and community members and community groups. So we've started that process. We want to continue that process, and one of the main groups that has come forward to really engage with us on this has been the Dogpatch Neighborhood Association, and really, appreciate and respect their kind of efforts to try to understand what I'm talking about when I'm saying navigation center, and what that would mean for their community, and them giving me advice about siting and operations, and it's been a fruitful dialogue. We did have a community meeting, our first, last Wednesday, and it was good. There was a lot of input, and people felt comfortable to express various views, from extremely supportive to like, what are you talking about? You should never do anything like that here. But it's really important, and this is how we move forward as a city, is that we need to dialogue about this and try to understand how we can better serve each other, and how we can be good community members. And so some of the community feedback, reflected, that we should do more outreach, that there's a strong desire to stay with us in this process and to try to understand, how the operation is going to look. That, to work with some of the business owners to make sure that we're going to be, facilitating their business as best as possible. And that we should work together with the port to really put a hard stop date. And that's something that I'm willing to do and excited to do. And I think that's part of trust building in this process is, as we move forward, to really say that this is temporal. This is not a forever situation. And I'm really happy to do that. Yeah, that's what I talked about. There was also suggestions about other sites, which is always a great opportunity for me to find new sites for other projects, is whenever I suggest a specific site. And so there were some really thoughtful recommendations for other sites that we've taken to heart and passed on to the architects and engineers to be able to understand some of the land use and other issues in other areas. It is kind of a tough thing to find a good spot for this, and there's many operational reasons why, but I'm never closed down to any thinking, and I'm really happy to take those. So we've taken in some of that advice and are looking at it as well. But this is a site that, at least from my perspective, as in the homeless service provision, I feel like we can be very successful. I think it would meet our core needs about it being a very good facility and helping people to end their homelessness, as well as this double bottom line that I feel like I always need to meet is to improve a situation whenever I'm opening a program someplace. And so as we explore other alternatives citywide and even locally, if there's a better place to position, I really encourage us to continue moving ahead with this site, if possible, just to explore the viability and the other issues. There's, many issues that come with getting creative about using space like this, and so it creates many process steps, and I would rather, not slow those down if possible, while staying open to other options. So these are our next steps. Continue the community engagement process, continue to assess sites, move forward with the street vacation process, move forward with the planning and permitting process, and move forward with an RFP for a service provider partner. These are long steps. It sounds like we're just going to go boom, 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 boom. It's not so simple in San Francisco, and it's not so simple for opening a homeless service center site. And this is aspirational, and these are the processes and the priorities that I would like to move forward with starting with continued community engagement. So thank you.
Okay. Brad, you have something?
Thank you, Sam and Paul. Appreciate it. I just wanted to add a few details that I didn't hear in the presentations regarding Pier 80. I think the commitment has been that that facility will end July 1st. That facility and the closure of that facility is not related to this facility. This is a proposed 80-bed facility on the 24th Street property. Sam mentioned the street vacation process. That street vacation process is a public process. It ends with a vote by the Board of Supervisors to vacate a portion of the street that Paul described to enable this use. There's also a CEQA process led by the Planning Department to study this use at this location. And the request later, after CEQA is complete, to the Port Commission would be to consider a memorandum of understanding between the Port and Public Works to enable this use to go on at this site. So those are all public processes, and we're very much at the beginning of that, and I just wanted to add those details. Thank you.
Thanks, Brett. Public comment, Katie Liddell, speaking for Toby Levine. Katie?
Thank you. Katie Liddell from South Beach, Rincon, Mission Bay. I am not here to speak for myself today. I'm here to speak for Toby Levine, whom I think you all know, commissioners and port staff, as being a long-term resident and somebody who always has very sane, commonsensical advice. Toby is on her way over for her annual London trip and couldn't be here, so I just wanted to read some of her feedback. To make a center successful and learning from 1950 mission, it seems that there are at least three components. Number one, a very fine service provider such as the Episcopal Community Services. Number two, a fine leader, and 1950 seems to have it in Miss Ledbetter. Number three, excellent transportation for getting folks to their appointments and in general getting around. Another set of necessities is buy-in from Dogpatch, buy-in from the PDR businesses in the surrounding neighborhood, and support among the homeless communities, including the homeless organizations. There is no doubt in my mind that we need more navigation centers. We have an enormous encampment in Mission Bay under the 280 up ramp at King. There's another encampment on Shotwell. And along the Embarcadero on Port property, there are many homeless individuals. I admire that the Port staff is making an effort. You ought to be congratulated. Positive results of the experience at Pier 80 should be documented. Thank you.
Thank you. Corinne Woods.
What's Corinne going to say?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Corinne Woods. I'm very familiar with this area. Been a longtime member of the Central Waterfront Advisory Group and also a longtime advocate for the Blue Greenway and the parks along the port. I want to start by joining Toby and Katie in saying I commend the port for making a big effort to find a solution to this unacceptable blight of homeless camps on our streets, under our freeways. I think it's important that other agencies step up and that the Board of Supervisors not just complain, but make an attempt to find sites in other neighborhoods that are impacted by this situation. The 24th Street entrance to Warm Water Cove Park has been a de facto homeless camp for many years, on and off. It was clean yesterday, but it's been a long fight to try and keep it that way. A structured navigation center should be an improvement on the current situation of vehicularly housed homeless and some pretty scary people. After my pit bull died, I stopped going down there by myself because it's really very frightening sometimes. Warm Water Cove Park is physically isolated in an industrial area. It's got no adjacent neighbors to keep eyes on it. It's kind of been an orphan in the park family. Park advocates, including the Green Trust and Blue Greenway volunteers, have tried countless hours of graffiti removal, painting, weeding, trash pickup to help the port maintain this. But between what can be a kind of a lawless element down there and the port's limited resources, Warm Water Cove Park really has been a neglected, although quite beautiful area. In 2007, the Piero Patri Foundation and Spur sponsored an urban design fellowship project to envision options for the future of Warm Water Cove Park. This report is available on Spur's website, and it's definitely worth reading. The port should ensure that the Navigation Center helps to maintain and improve Warm Water Cove Park. Access to the park should be assured, and increased maintenance should be funded by the city to mitigate the potential increase in utilization of this precious resource and prevent further degradation. While the Navigation Center is in operation and after it's gone, Warm Water Cove Park should be left in better shape than it is now. Thank you.
Thanks, Corinne. Amy Weiss, Amy, and then on deck will be Joe Boss.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Amy Farah-Weiss, and I'm the founder and director of the St. Francis Homelessness Challenge. And, of course, Francis of Assisi is the namesake of our city and Bay Area. And we named the challenge after Francis of Assisi because he said, "First do what's necessary, then do what's possible, and soon you will be doing the impossible." And so what's possible in the event of the crisis that we have in terms of our lack of shelter for the thousands of unhoused people who are on the street? And we have about 700 or so people on average every day that are trying to get into shelter that can't. And so what can we do? Well, we can do innovative things like Sam Dodge and HOPE and all these community partners are pushing for, with having interim shelter that focuses on transition from the streets into permanent housing, with this step in between of supporting basic needs. Because let's just keep in mind that there are thousands of people on the street every night that don't have access to a toilet. Imagine what that would be like. They're people just like you and me. People that don't have access to a secure shelter. And I love what was just said by, I think it was Corinne, that what if you could have a situation where at the end of this experience, the community was actually improved instead of it being seen as something to push back against because it would actually bring negative impacts to the area. And so that's really one of the focuses that we have with the St. Francis Homelessness Challenge, is how do you increase livability for not just the unhoused residents, but also increase well-being and livability and public health for everybody that's surrounding. And I just wanted to let you know that in terms of the community outreach and engagement, that the HOPE office has a partner in us. We have a survey that everyone can take that's online. It's www.stfrancischallenge.com. There have been 1,000 people that have taken that so far. I was looking through the results today. 52 of the members that have signed up to challenge themselves in the city to take interim action live in that 94107 Dogpatch neighborhood. I just put out a survey right before coming here, and already 15 people have signed up to do community outreach and engagement. And so I just wanted to be able to represent the YIMBYs of San Francisco, the people who are saying yes in my backyard to this kind of work. So please know that you have a partner in us, and please do what you can as in your position where you are the guardians of public land and of underutilized space to be able to actually do something that's necessary and possible for the well-being and livelihood of all of our neighbors that are currently without residence. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe?
Hi, my name is Joe Boss. I'm a resident of Dogpatch and Potrero Hill, and I'm not trying to rain on anyone's parade here. However, there has not been anywhere near a sufficient outreach. So to have the community say, well, this is a great thing, you do have to have community outreach. And the Dogpatch neighborhood and the Potrero neighborhood have definitely been involved in the happenings of our southeast area. The reality of, yes, do we need the Navigation Center? Yeah. Could we relocate it maybe at Civic Center Plaza, which would be closer to the people who need the help? I mean, obviously that would never happen. They tried that. I think Agnes tried it. It didn't work out, and I understand why. However, if you have not engaged sheety drayage, which is a very important business for this company, for this city, if there was an earthquake or any disaster, and you have not engaged them, and you have not engaged the Dogpatch Neighborhood Association, yes, we got an invitation the day before there were meetings. That's not a lot of lead time for public outreach. And I'm not trying to damn the efforts of Brad or anyone else. However, it seems like this is kind of so important to the mayor that we can take these shortcuts, and you just can't take the shortcuts. The port is going to be the one holding the bag and getting the bad results. All I can say is, I mean, I've always supported the port in many, many ways, and this is not being handled very well. I'm sure that Sam has done other things in other cities and everything else, but we certainly can't find his resume anywhere. I haven't been able to. So, pardon me?
LinkedIn?
Pardon me?
LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn. How many people are absolutely checking on LinkedIn? I mean, don't get me wrong. Sam, you're a wonderful guy, and you're very well-spoken, better than I. But I just would like this commission to pause and come up with the fact that Sam said, well, we need an end time to this, a specific amount of time. That's like, I don't know if Sam's been around San Francisco, but that's just not true. Every time we have put an end date to something that is a social help, it gets moved. So anyway, I appreciate your thoughts. Bye.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate that. Any more public comment? Please hit the mic, because I don't have any speaker cards for you. So
and I apologize. I actually wasn't intending to speak on this topic. Hi, my name is Gail Gilman. In this capacity, I'm the Executive Director of the Community Housing Partnership. And what I want to urge this commission is that I absolutely think community process is so important. We're the largest real estate developer of housing for homeless individuals here in San Francisco. From Transbay to the Marina to the Western Addition to Civic Center, we own over 1,200 units of permanent housing with support services for homeless individuals. And as folks who go through CEQA and that entitlement process, we truly understand how we need to outreach to all of our neighbors to have their buy-in for projects. And also, as a fellow commissioner, I understand your position, because I sit on a commission myself, but I do want to urge you and the staff of the port to do everything possible to expedite this. We are in a crisis here in San Francisco, and while our numbers have stayed flat, we are in a crisis of desperation. As someone who's been doing this for over 20 years, I have never seen homeless individuals as desperate and downtrodden as they are today. And as someone who lives in North Beach, as I previously talked about, and we have a large experience of homelessness there, I just need to say we are facing a crisis that I have never seen in my 20 years of doing this kind of work. And if there is any way that this commission and the staff at the port can ensure that a year from now we're not standing here voting on whether to place a navigation center on port land, I, as a citizen of San Francisco and a taxpayer, as a nonprofit and civil servant, would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll just take one more speaker, please.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Bruce Huey. I'm the president of the Dogpatch Neighborhood Association. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'll try to make it in 1 minute. We support and welcome the action here that's aimed at addressing a citywide homeless problem, but the current proposed site at 24th Street is inadequate for both the served population as well as the neighborhood. It's remote, as Corinne has said. It lacks consumer services, which your other sites, 1950 and the proposed site at Market Street, have. And the transportation options are singular. You only have one transportation option, the T-line, which in our neighborhood is very unreliable at this point. So I would like to encourage you to further, and we will welcome future conversations, further conversations with the neighborhood and the businesses as a whole, because we've been totally kind of floored by this at this point. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. That being said, public comment is closed. Commissioner Kounalakis.
So, I first started living in San Francisco in the early 90s when Art Agnos was mayor. And the homeless challenge in San Francisco is something that generations now of people have been talking about and dealing with. And I think that someone said recently to me, they said, you know, it's not a solvable problem. It is a manageable problem. And so as a community, we have to figure out how we can work together to find solutions that will be the best, the most appropriate, and, you know, not just for the people who are so in such desperate need of help, but for the community as a whole. And so clearly, even though this is just the very, very beginning of this process, there are going to be a lot of very strong feelings about it. But anticipating that Pier 80 was going to come up, I went down there before I became a commissioner. I was just about to have my hearing, and my husband and I were driving the port land, and we came up on Pier 80 and sort of talked our way in, which was great to go in unannounced without anyone there to greet me, just to see how it functioned. And I tell you, it was incredibly impressive. It was calm. People were watching movies. They were talking with each other. It was clean. You know, that site, you know, it was in one small corner of a very large site, and I know there are long-term plans for it and all of these things. But just the idea that, you know, San Francisco's gotten good at this, being able to bring people in and give them aid, and then find a place for them to go for long-term care. So have a very open mind to this. We went down to 24th Street. You know, nothing about it jumps out as me as an inappropriate site, I'll tell you. I mean, what I would like, though, is to go down to one of the navigation centers, maybe the one on Mission Street. I drive by that sometime. I really would like to see how these are functioning and how you get 81% of the people who leave in a positive way. That's really impressive. And I'd like to see it because someone mentioned, you know, the Art Agnos days, and it got me thinking about that as well. And I think we've really come a long way. And so it's my hope that together with the community, the local community, the greater community, the people who are so invested in working every day on this issue, that we'll be able to find a good solution.
Commissioner Brandon.
Sam, thank you very much for the presentation, and thank you for your passion and commitment to the homeless, because it's definitely something that we have to address. And thank you for your explanation on Pier 80. And I think the navigation concept is the best way to try to address this issue. I think that this is a city-wide issue, and it's interesting how everyone here thinks that this is a port issue. And I want to thank President Adams for keeping homeless on our agenda, because it's been a huge issue here on the waterfront. And I think the Navigation Center would be absolutely wonderful. I'm not quite sure 24th Street is the place to put the Navigation Center, or if you put it on 25th Street. I mean, it's a street. But I think that we have to have a broader vision. We have to look at all locations in San Francisco that can possibly have a navigation center, and there has to be community engagement. You can't just say, I'm going to put it here, just like we did at Pier 80, where we said, we're just going to put these people here and we're not going to have a conversation with the surrounding community. I truly support it. I truly think we need to do our part, and we need to help in whatever way we can, but there has to be community engagement. And I, too, would love to take a tour of the Navigation Center. Because I love this concept, and I think a small, structured, controlled facility is absolutely wonderful, that is taking people to the next step in life to help them. So thank you very much.
I also want to say, Sam, thank you. And, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to try to say it in a minute or two. America has a problem of homelessness that's out of control. And I appreciate everyone talking about the passion, the heated debate. But, we got 5 people running for president, and not one person has mentioned homelessness. They talk about everything else, but nobody has talked about one of the worst epidemics in this country. Clearly, we got 5 candidates that are out of touch about all the pain and suffering in this country. And I'm like Anderson Cooper on CNN. I did my fact checks. December 10th, 2015, Mayors Garcetti from L.A., Mayor Lee from San Francisco, and all the West Coast mayors met in Portland. And they were trying to figure out, because of this epidemic up and down the West Coast ports and cities, what to do. They were like, how do we fix this? For the mayor, for the port, I agree with Commissioner Kounalakis. I don't think the mayor is going to be able to fix it. But you know what? He's trying to do something. We're out front on this debate. And how dare we as citizens, a lot of these veterans are part of the homeless people. They went out and fought for our rights just to be here. They went over to all these wars and given their lives, and they've come back, and they're homeless. Do we not owe them a debt of gratitude to do something for them? I mean, where have we become as a society? And I have to say that, and I'm very passionate about that. And some people will say, you know what? I believe in it. They get very political, but don't bring it to my neighborhood. Well, where do we take it? Everybody's got to share. You know what? When you win, everybody's got to share in the winning. And when they're suffering, everybody's got to share in the suffering. I believe that. So, Sam, Brad, thank you. And we got to keep this at the forefront. And I commend the mayor for having the political courage, because there's a lot of politicians that will not talk about this issue because they're worried about getting voted out of office. You know what? This is a moral issue. This is a moral issue, who we are in San Francisco. And yeah, maybe they can do a better outreach, but you know what? I have never found anybody can always do it right. And sometimes we become Monday morning quarterbacks. Well, step up, go down and help Sam, and show us how you can do it better. Because sometimes we're the biggest hypocrites. We can say, oh, yeah, you should do this and that. Please come on down, join on in. Let's see what you can do. Saying that, I'm done. Thank you.
Can I just ask, so what are the next steps, and what's the timeline for what will happen next?
So our next steps is we need to have a meeting with port staff and planning staff, and we're going to strategize what the upcoming procedures are in terms of starting a street vacation process, which is a public process. We also need to work with the planning department in a general plan referral, and we're ready to get started on that. As
Okay,
well as,
is there going to be any community engagement process in that?
yes, Sam can talk more about that. And we also have that CEQA initial study process, which is also public and with planning.
Okay, thank you. That's okay.
Okay,
Thank
we're
you, sir.
done. They can talk offline.